You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 388, Star Wars Visions, Reflections Part 2. And if I got that right, Jonesy's going to kill me if I get that wrong. So, but we're back for the third, is that right? Yeah, the second, math is hard, second and third of episodes from Star Wars Visions. Season 1, Season 2 is yet to be announced, but I'm sure it's just a matter of minutes, if not hours, before that happens. And we've got arguably 3 of the better episodes to talk about tonight. So we're going to have fun doing that. And we'll kind of tee it off at the very end there and give you a preview of what's coming next. Spoiler alert, it's the final 3 episodes. And speaking of spoilers, Jonesy, welcome to the show. This show almost didn't happen. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm good. I had some technical issues before we came on the air.
What's great, though, is every time there's a problem, we can just send each other Star Wars GIFs, whatever you're going to call them. And we just, I don't know, lighten the mood a little bit. But you remember back when we used to start on time and used to have a lot of pride?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were here like 30 minutes early, and now it's like last minute kind of thing. So,
no,
but that's
going to be great, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not a reflection of how much we don't enjoy doing this show. By no means is that it.
It's just a matter of how chaotic life can be.
Yes, that is absolutely true. Oh, all right. Well, I know we've taken about 10 days off here, so I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be talking about Star Wars, and particularly Visions, and particularly these 3 episodes, because they were pretty solid. And 2 of them I was not expecting to like. Like, visually, when we talked about these, initially we kind of, gave our thoughts and impressions, but these weren't standouts for me. And I would say, having seen all of them now and been able to reflect on the episodes, I do kind of put these up towards the top of all of them. I think I mentioned what my favorites were last week, and that still hasn't changed. But what did you think about these overall?
I was actually shocked by TOB1. This was one that I don't get into the whole Mega Man aesthetic for the most part. And even when it started, it was, we'll talk a little bit about it, but it was still very, I don't know, child. It reminded me of droids, right? And that type of style and sounds and everything. But I was really, really surprised. I actually did enjoy it. There was a bit of a story to it, and it was really entertaining. And Ninth Jedi delivered on pretty much everything we had hoped it would, I think.
Yeah.
And Village Bride, it was kind of one of my dark horse favorites coming into the series before it was launched, and I wasn't disappointed. It was a really spiritual type of episode that then got very Star Warsy, but also very traditional anime there at the, when the villain comes in. It was just this really terrific blend of it all. And though I don't know if I can make any sense of what they were trying to tell us with all of it, but we'll dig into some of that though as we get into it. But overall, I think from a 3 episode stretch of how we're doing these, at least for these 3 parts, this might be the kind of the best grouping of the bunch.
Yeah, I would say in soccer we call it the group of death, there was plenty of death in these episodes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So before we go any further, just want to acknowledge our newest Patreon member. We've got a $5 subscriber. Just goes by the name Jones.
Hey, they got to be all right then.
They have to be okay. I guess maybe we'll see. To be determined, but thank you for joining that. They will get access to the comic book coverage that we've been doing. And I cranked out 3 more last week, and I've got 2 more coming probably next week. So I'm going to be camping this weekend, but
nice. Yeah. We've got War of the Bounty Hunters 5 comes out next week. So I'm just going to bundle the last 3. It was a little difficult doing issue by issue on those. So just going to group the overall story arc there, and we'll wrap that up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We did have a few things of news though, Albert.
Oh, did we?
Yeah. We haven't, again, it's been a while, so we haven't talked about Book of Boba. So Book of Boba Fett comes out December 29th. Yeah, it's how this is like old news now, right?
It is old news.
But that's super exciting, man. The time between Christmas and New Year's, we're going to get a brand new series kicking off. That's pretty exciting.
I joked about this on social media because they originally last year announced that Book of Boba would come out in 2021.
Right.
And they stuck to their word.
Squeaked it in.
With December 29th as the release date. So good on them for not leading us astray. But it is kind of funny that they released it on that day of all days. So I'm sure there's a very good reason, and they don't really do anything that's not strategic in some way. So whether
It's
it's
always funny.
production or
What's always funny is at work. Usually that means you had a contract to meet, and if you release it before if you get production going before this
right,
date,
yep,
there's some financial incentive for it, and if you don't, then there's some sort of financial penalty.
hmm
But yeah, I guess maybe just delivering on the promise. But that's super exciting. I mean, it's always good to have. It's so weird these days. We get new content during the holidays,
yeah,
like during Thanksgiving or during Christmas. That's not typical. We usually never. When you and I were growing up, like episodes were on hiatus by that point.
right, yeah. And
You
I
know,
think there's just so much Star Wars out that they got to put it somewhere. So we're
dude,
gonna
they are
get it.
cramming
And
it in. That is for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
There's never a dull moment anymore.
that's right.
But
Yeah.
speaking of new content, it's October. It's
Yes.
October 6th. We're recording this. And of course, that means everybody's favorite month, Halloween month, right?
hmm
So we've got a few new things. We got Kevin Scott's The High Republic Adventures. He's got the Ghost of Vader's Castle coming out, IDW. I think we're up to issue 2 with the third one coming out here next week.
I
Or
looked
is
at
that
those.
this week?
I think it's this week, but I picked them up and I've read them. They're darker than I thought they were.
They
Like,
are.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're still kind of like aimed towards the younger audiences, but
Right.
it's nothing you'd want to show or like read to a 5-year-old or say, "Hey, you're 5-year-old, pick this up and read it." Because the imagery alone, like the artwork is fantastic. It's cartoony, but the
Mhm.
imagery, the artwork, the artist, I forget who is that's doing the comic, does a really great job of making things look really eerie.
Yeah. And those cover C arts, if you're a comic book nerd like we are, the cover C artwork has been truly awesome.
Mm,
And then the cover B art, rather, one with especially the Chewbacca one, the Wookiee.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
really, really cool.
What else is
Yeah.
coming out?
Oh yeah,
Did
the Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. It's
yeah, I
on Disney
saw it.
Plus.
Did you
What'd you
watch it?
think?
It
I
was
haven't seen it
okay.
yet. Yeah.
It was okay. I was expecting it to be better, but it was. I mean, it's hard to go wrong with Legos these days. They've tried and they were successful a few times, but for the most part, I feel like those are always pretty solid. Good laughs, and they don't really take themselves seriously by any means. There's a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of nods. If you are following Cavan Scott and Charles Soule on their
Yeah.
comic books and what they're doing, there's stuff in there. There's some deep cuts or deep references to things that you would only know if you followed those comic books. So
And they
I
are
think there was something
super
in there.
excited about it. They won't shut up about it on
Well,
Twitter.
they got their names in the credits. Like that's a
Well,
big
they did,
deal,
but it was also they created a character specifically in comics, and so
Mm,
anytime they can get that onto screen, it's a really big deal. It's kind of like Mark Thompson, right? Seeing his name in blue just meant a lot. And yeah,
yeah,
same thing for this one, I think too. Exactly, you hit on the head there, but just a way where they have a character they created specifically for a comic series, and then or Charles Soule did, and then Kevin Scott with a lot of influence in there as well. But that's the reviews, kind of what you said about the reviews I've seen of the Lego. If you like the Lego, really anything, it pretty much delivers what you would expect. There's nothing super special about it. It's entertaining. You get a few chuckles, and but there's nothing earth shattering. It's not going to change your life or anything. But it's kind of worth the what is it, like a 40-45 minutes,
it's
something like
like
that.
45 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, but still, it's good to get people in the mood for Halloween, especially a little more Ken friendly stuff.
exactly. Yeah, and I mean it's more Star Wars, so come on, let's not complain, right?
Well, hold on. They do keep you employed, I guess.
Yeah. What else is coming out? Because I didn't write any show notes down for news.
Well, no, that's about it for right now. We'll see what next week brings. We can't spoil it all right now.
Okay. We've got when is Ronin officially? Oh no, we can talk
October
about
12th. Yeah, so next week we can talk about it as of the 28th, but October 12th, I believe, is the official launch date.
it. Yep. So that'll be coming soon. All right.
Yep.
And that's will
So
be
get your pre-orders in.
yeah, we'll be rolling into that in about 2 weeks with coverage on that. So okay, well, with that, let's get into our main topic, which is going to be the Village Bride, T0B1 or Toby. I've heard it both ways now, especially when you listen to the audio with the audio stuff on,
Mhm.
and then the Ninth Jedi. And I put those in reverse order because I want to talk about the Ninth Jedi last, just because it was kind of like the better one of these, although they were all pretty good. But I thought we could just end on that one. So
All
I'm
right.
probably going to screw you up because in the show notes it says the other ones.
That's okay. I'm adapted at
Okay, good.
adjusting to all the chaos you bring.
Yes, that's what I'm here for, folks. Chaos and disorder.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about the Village Bride, and I'll read this one. You can read the next one here. I'll
Sure.
give you the quick summary. A Jedi on the run is summoned by an old ally to observe the strange and beautiful customs of a remote village on the eve of a wedding. The Jedi must make a choice when she discovers their peace is threatened by a local warlord. And this is probably one of the more, like, I'm going to call it deeper, but it's probably more layered, right?
Yeah.
There's more layers to this than again, what appeared just from the trailer, which really wasn't fair. But even after you've watched it, again, there's just a lot of dimensions. There's a lot of thickness to this one, just very much like the Ninth Jedi. What was the one last week we were talking? Oh, well, of course, the Duel.
Right.
Made a whole book about it, right? So those are definitely, it's just deeper. There's a lot more going on. And it starts off with this whole, the carrying of the bride thing. And I went back and looked up to see if there were like traditions of Japanese traditions where, they would carry brides on their back or something. And I couldn't find anything, and
Right.
I didn't really spend that much time on it. But I just wondered if there were any traditions that you were aware of, either in real or Star Wars. I don't remember this in Star Wars at all. Or were they just germaphobes? Because something.
Right. They wanted to keep her feet clean for the shrine, basically.
Okay,
In
is that
the
what it was?
episode.
Like pristine going in.
Something like, I mean, that's what he had said in the, I think his name was Asu, that he said in the script there. I looked too, and I couldn't find it because I was like, man, this reminds me of something. And there are definitely cultures out there that have all sorts of, what is it? Is it Hindu weddings where they do like a circle around thing? I mean, there's all of these really cool, I'm going to call them rituals to be very generic here, but
Tradition?
just traditions. Yeah, traditions of what you do in these types of ceremonies. So it was really cool just to see something very different, and hiking up a mountain to go to a shrine effectively.
He must really love her.
Man, and he wasn't even breaking a sweat, man. He was cool.
He has like no problem to do that.
Yeah, I like the animation on this show too. This was really, really solid in that respect too.
I was just going to say, I did find that in Britain, when they carry the bride over the threshold as well, but somewhere it it veered off from, we do it here in the U.S. We're supposed to, I guess, maybe, I don't know. It's a tradition that men, or one of them, bride or groom, carries the other person over the threshold of the house. And I looked into that a lot, and the only one that I could find was the Britain one. It was because they felt like the ground, the threshold itself had like bad spirits or demons, I guess, or right in the threshold itself. And so the groom is supposed to carry the bride over that, so she doesn't step on it, because if she steps on it, then there's bad luck, that could come the way of the marriage.
So this is just like in baseball, where the pitcher will jump over the line when he
like
crosses
walking.
in or out of the diamond.
Yep, same kind of thing. It's a foul,
Yeah.
some way.
All the evil spirits on the baseball diamond.
That's right. They call the Force the Magina. Or is it Magina?
Magina, yeah.
That was interesting that we've heard, like, the whole idea of the Force is no different than like mana. You hear that a lot in video games, and
Right.
like key and the spirit of energy, right? It's all that mystical,
Channeling
intangible, whatever it is, right? Life gives way to it. So no different here. I thought it was I thought it was cool that they just had a different name for it other than the Force, and that's what they refer to. Almost like I wouldn't say the sisters, the Night Sisters, but same kind of thing, where they are manipulating the Force in some way. They're probably calling it something different, but I got the sense there was a line in here where they were talking about, I guess it was later on, when the bride comes out to talk to Kara and or not Kara, what's her name?
She didn't have a name.
Oh, it was F was her name.
F, yeah.
Whatever that means. Force, female, fun, Fig Newton, I don't know, something. But she comes out to talk to F, and she makes the comment about, oh, you can feel the Force too, or you can see the Magina as well, or feel the Magina as well. So I took that as, I want to ask you, are these folks Force sensitive or in some way, or was just she Force sensitive in some way?
Well, and I had a broader question of that, because I think, is this planet a nexus planet, or a Force nexus, right?
Yeah.
Because we do have this stone, and we had the idea that the planet had memories. Now, it was interesting, they were broadcasting the memories that these two were part of, and there was some part I didn't understand with the whole crumbling of everything. I'm assuming that happened at one time.
I didn't know. Go on. Sorry, we'll come back to that.
No, I mean, there were a couple parts of this I didn't quite understand what it was trying to show us, but I think it was probably more symbolic of the changes the planet had been going through and things like that, because they had talked about stripping of the resources and kind of what the village is under these days after the end of the war, because this era is post Order 66 at some point, just to kind of ground people a bit there. But yeah, they do seem like they have some connection to I mean, everybody has connection to the Force, right? But it did seem like they were at least aware of it, or they paid respects to it because they knew it was out there. And we've seen this in other content. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but we've seen in other content where people respect the Force. Even, I mean, this is like Chirrut, right? And
Yep.
Baze, where they may not be necessarily Force sensitive, although we, presume that they are, but they don't have to be followers of the Force and to respect it and to, protect it and to, to make sure that it's all flowing as it should, right? That the natural ways of life are still, working.
Mhm.
And so I think whether they were Force sensitive or not, it was kind of irrelevant, but they definitely were able to start something that got the planet to do something. So I thought this whole Nexus planet was such an interesting concept to be revisited here.
Yeah, they had there was lots of quotes in here about living in harmony with nature. There was, what was it here? You had, flow by casting a stone, but live in harmony with nature, and you'll change together. The people of this world know that well. The breath of life becomes the wind. I mean, it was all very like deep
Yeah.
stuff, right? That, and that's why I said there's very. And while I would say the negative is, so we can come back to that. The negative of this episode, as much as I did like it, I do like it a lot. The negative was there was things they were throwing at us that I was like, wait, what does this mean? Like, I don't
Right.
understand why this is even being discussed. Like, we talked about the whole thing of the crumbling of the mountains or rocks or whatever as
Yeah.
they touched the altar. We never got a payoff. Like, at least I don't remember anything significant or anything being mentioned as to why that occurred.
Oh,
I
and that's what I'm saying. I don't know if it was just all in connection with what had happened during the war, because I also talked about war. The only thing that comes from war is loss,
mm,
right? And as I think it was just more of that theme, right, of harmony with nature, preservation of nature, not destroying nature. So I think there was a bit of an underlying theme going on there, and that definitely has that tone. But at the same time, I think it was still very much again, it's kind of like Avar Chris, right? It's just the way that she sees the Force, and to give us a new way of saying, okay, what we've seen with Avar Chris and what she feels with the other Jedi, whether it's, in this one they kept calling it the sky, the Force, the river, and we've seen other similes with that, with, it's a raging sea, it's a song,
mhm,
it's
mhm.
all these things. So it's this continuation of the way that the Force sings and talks to people, and the way that they interpret it, that it all still just binds in all these different ways. And I think that's the part that's really most interesting about this episode in particular, was that it just continued to expound on that, to where you can still think of it in even more ways than what we've realized lately that our minds have been opened up to in the High Republic.
Yeah, yeah. There's different depictions of the Force itself, is probably another way to say that.
Right.
And I guess that around this point we get the background on what's going on, and essentially you've got a village elder who is supposed to be taken as collateral so that these group of raiders can kind of do whatever they want. And that's the part I didn't really get, because they said the planet had been stripped of all natural resources, right? The separatists had already come in, taken all the natural resources, yet this bandit wanted the planet for something, which I
Right.
don't think we really got to the bottom of, and
What
we're
I
probably not in 14 minutes, but
Yeah, what I took from it was, you had a power play, right? When the Separatist army was defeated, you had an existing band of people that were already on the planet came in and took over the droids. They were able to centralize it all again, and then take that over and just exert power and control. I think that was clearly, to me, that was what I got from it. That was all that they wanted. It was just somebody else already on the planet, and they found a group to subjugate, and they had a power play, and they were able to do that. And they're probably not doing it just to this village. They're probably doing it to a number of other villages. And it's kind of the old mafia mentality, right? One
yeah, right.
one vacates and you move back in, and you they're trying to pay the ransom here of the bribes, basically, right?
Hmm.
And they want to take the chief leader as what they call it,
Collateral. Is what
yeah,
they-
collateral, right? To make sure that they kept paying their dues, right? Or they kept in check and they kept in line. They weren't going to rise up against them. And instead, his daughter is the one or daughter or granddaughter, or granddaughter, yeah, granddaughter is the one that stepped up and wanted to take his place, but clearly not a happy environment for the family. It's the wedding. Saku, her sister, called it, one of mourning rather than celebration for a wedding. It's just everything felt wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And
that one guy comes up and says the whole village is grieving right now, and I'm like, this is sad.
right, yeah, yeah, and F kind of feels it, like, something just doesn't feel right either. And this is as much her journey too as it was, the realization of this village of maybe not the power that they have, but that someone is willing to put themselves forward for them as well.
Hmm. And let's talk about F for just a quick second, because it, I, blah. There's a part of this whole story where her, did he have a name? What was the other guy's name?
He did not have a main. He was her master's friend, I guess.
Yeah, I can't. I thought they
He seemed
called
to
him
be an
something,
inhabitant of the planet. Yeah, traveler, I think they called him. That was it.
all right. So that guy, I was going to pull up. I have to show the credits here with everybody, so I'll look at that here in just a minute. But um, he is trying to get her to, I guess, what, come back to being a Jedi again, or being a presence of, being a Force presence, because she's got a mask on, right? So she's kind of like hiding herself. It
Yeah.
doesn't. You don't get the sense that she's used her lightsaber at all. She's been on the run this entire time, so she's kind of like a Kanan and trying to lay low, not let the Empire find her. And it feels like he's trying to push her to step forward. Like, hey, this galaxy still needs you. You have an ability to change and make change happen. So you should take advantage of it. Feels very similar to like Ahsoka in that way too. When you like getting back to the Ahsoka novel and what she was doing, she was trying to stay low, but yet her natural instinct to be good was always surfacing and getting in the way of that and causing that kind of conflict for her. And eventually she comes out of it, and it's a really great moment at the very end. But beyond that, was there any other reason why he was pushing her? Was that what you kind of took from it as well?
Yeah, it was actually it was difficult to figure that out because he made this comment like it's not like I care about that code of yours.
Yeah.
And so it was a very interesting kind of he kept prodding her and showing her the things. And again, it was much and I guess maybe with his friend being her master or whatnot, he seemed to at least support those same kind of values. And it may have been as much for her that look, you need to be you and you can't hide forever. And you need to embrace who you are and embrace. And when you have opportunities to do something good, you should do them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think those were the things maybe he was pressing as much as, don't forget your Jedi heritage and your lineage and all of that. I think it was more of just when you see someone who needs help, don't run away, don't ignore it. You have the power to be influential and to do something about it. Don't lose those opportunities to make that impact.
And she does make a comment. She's like, "I know what you're trying to do."
Right. Yeah.
Right?
She sees right through it. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. His name was Valco. He's listed in the credits as Valco. I don't remember them ever saying his name, but that's
Yeah, it's like every other character in Star Wars. They get a name after the fact.
yep.
But
The
yeah.
F and Valco.
Yeah, because her name's not mentioned either in the whole episode.
Nah. So yeah, and Katya is bringing up something here that we're going to touch on a little bit. She says, "I didn't really get this Jedi. She's a Padawan, but seems off in some way. Interesting but strange." Yeah, we'll come back to that in a second too,
Yeah.
because when she cuts off her little Padawan braid, I was like, "Wait, what? I thought she was a Jedi." So, but more on that here in just a second.
Right.
This is where we get to the meeting between the bride and the Jedi there at night or whatever. And we get the line, "I have a bad feeling about this," right? And
Every episode seems
well, in
to have
every
it.
episode, and so like what we said last week, if you didn't catch that or you haven't had a chance to listen to it and you just happen to be listening to this one, what we said was this is a love letter to George Lucas and a love letter to Star Wars. And so if you were given the opportunity and you didn't know if you'd ever be able to come back and write anything ever again for Star Wars, and because you're doing it in a format that's just not been Star Wars traditionally, you're going to put in all the stuff that you remember and love because you want to see it on the screen. Like I'd be able to say, I wrote that line, that infamous line of, "I have a bad feeling about this. I got it in on one of my works." And that's why you see a lot of lightsabers and a lot of, "I've got a bad feeling about this," and a lot of references to kyber crystals and the Force. And even the next one here with TOB1, Toby, there were lines that were just almost directly lifted out of Star Wars movies for the
Right.
sake of somebody being able to say, see what I mean, it's on the nose, sure, but it's an homage, right? It's they're paying tribute to it.
Right.
But it was a lot. It was said a lot. I think it was said in every one of these episodes that we're talking about tonight. I have a bad
Yeah, I
feeling
think it
about
may have only been not said just in one
Mhm.
of all 9, actually. Yeah.
I think so too. Um, So here's another question that I didn't really understand because she knows, the bride knows that she's going to be taken, and when they're having that conversation, she looks over to her husband Asu and says, "But she says, I won't ever be alone." I'm like, "Well, you're going to be taken." So did she mean that in the sense of, well, I'm going to be married and we're always going to be married forever? Or were they going to take him as well? It didn't really elaborate on that. I don't know if you have any thoughts around as to what that meant, but that was just another piece where I was questioning what exactly was going to happen that we didn't really get to see, of course.
Right. And I think I took it in two different ways. I think one was they were making this connection now with Asu, and her name was Haru.
Haru, yeah.
Yeah, and they were making this bond. They were making this commitment to be married, and she would live in the satisfaction that she had that. I think she was also referencing the Force or the Majina, where she knows that they're all connected there, regardless of where they are in space and time, right? So even if they're on the other side of the planet, or if they die, or if when her grandfather passes away, they're all still connected in one way or another.
Mhm.
And she was very spiritual in that kind of way, where you could tell not everybody had that same kind of faith. Asu was struggling a lot too. You could see the anger building up and the frustration with him, as well as her sister Saku and her little merry band. But she had already made peace with it. She understood what her sacrifice was to be, and she was not afraid. I think this is the thing also, people are afraid of loss and they're afraid of death. And she wasn't. She was like, this is the thing I feel like I need to do to protect my village, because we don't have another way of doing it. And this is my commitment to them. And I feel she's completely resolved of everything of what that's going to be, removing from her life.
Yep. Well, we get to the next morning, and this is where, it's a new dawn, the symbolism of a new day, a new dawn. She's going through a change now, and this is where she takes off the mask and she drops it off to the side, ridding herself of that, shedding herself of that old image, or just giving in to, I'm not going to run away anymore. I'm going to be who I am, and that kind of thing. And then
Right.
she pulls off she cuts her Padawan braid off. So, and that's usually done by a Jedi Master once they've, made their rank, or they pass the trials in some way. She didn't really go through any trials here, so I don't know if this was just kind of like, hey, there's nobody else around, so as of today, I'm declaring myself a full-fledged Jedi. Which, I guess if you're one of the few that's left, you have the right to do it. I guess maybe I don't know.
Hell, she'd be on the council now.
I am the council.
That's right. I am all the council members.
So, yeah.
So what did you take from that? What was the symbolic nature of her cutting off the Padawan braid in this? What did you take from that?
I think it was just that. I just think it was she was finally saying, "Look, I'm a full Jedi." He had that sort of pep talk with me about all of this, and it's my time to step up. I'm going to fulfill this role, and I can't have this braid on there because I don't know, it's holding me back, like as Anakin would say. And yeah, and then and her dropping that mask is just, I'm done hiding. I'm gonna go out there, because she does that, and then later on, I think she pulls back the cloak that she's wearing as well, because you can see her white robes underneath it for the first time when she faces the bandit leader there at the very end. So we don't really get to see where this is going, but if I had to put bets on what other episodes would we see something come from any of these, this one would be one of them. I would think would certainly has a lot of depth to it, and there's still a lot more story to be told, because again, presumably, if this is in that same universe that we're all used to seeing, then there's a Vader out there, and there's Kanan and all that stuff. So there's all kinds of ways this one could go, to be honest. But
right.
Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, and I agree with pretty much all of that. I think the other thing is that she was also, by shedding the braid, she's also shedding the doctrines of the Jedi, and to be able to forge her own path more in an individual manner, I think, as well, and to have that confidence that she can continue the teachings of the Jedi, but also in her own kind of way. And that realization where people don't, or when you're like, well, I don't have anybody else to really rely on or to train me anymore. I need to forge my own path. I need to take that step on my own and kind of be my own person. And now I would have left the mask on because I thought she looked pretty cool with it. She kind of reminded me of, what was it, like Raven in the Teen Titans or something like that.
Oh,
but,
yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but so I thought the look was kind of cool, but yeah, it's a really, I really like this. I'm agree with you though. This is an episode where they really could come back and continue to look at her adventures later on. What else does she come across? And does, whatever the traveler's name was in this one, you had mentioned there for a second. I totally forgot about it already.
Who's that?
To do with the trash can for the head.
Oh, Valco.
Valco, yeah. So that's another thing where, well, it sort of looked like, man. So,
like a trash can.
But one thing I was really excited about this episode is that Lord Izuma, the bandit, lost a hand.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which has been a while. Yeah, it feels like it's been a really long time since we've seen anybody lose a limb. course, Toei loses one later on too, but
yeah, but
whatever.
that's self-sacrificing kind of thing.
Well, it kind of. Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah,
It was different.
because you would have thought if he pulled hard enough, it would have just cut through him. But okay,
Right, yeah. What do you think of the yellow lightsaber, the yellow katana lightsaber on this
I
one?
loved it. Like, and again, there's this is at least the second. Well, how many? There were 2 yellow lightsabers in all of these, right? Total.
Oh god, yeah. Luke's got one in the comics now. Of course, I mean,
yeah,
we've got them all over the place now. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think in this series there were at least 2 episodes where we saw a yellow lightsaber. This is one of them. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I like the way it was designed. It looks very much like a katana. Like they didn't really make it look like a lightsaber. It was more shaped like a katana.
Yeah, and I love how
even the handle.
Yeah, and you got to see when she rotated that it was flat. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah.
And a very different sound too.
I hadn't heard it. Like I heard shades of, at least I thought I did, when she churns the lightsaber. When she ignited it, I thought I heard Rey's ignition.
It was a familiar ignition, but when she turned it, there was a different
that hum
kind of hum
different?
to it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll go back and listen.
I like when they do that though. You give us the familiar, but also give us something new, and it just gives a little extra depth to it, something that we haven't expected or seen yet or heard yet. I guess in some of these cases.
The other thing that I was going to mention here was the freezing of the lightning bolt or the blaster bolt.
Yeah,
which was cool. That was obviously a direct pull from The Force Awakens and what Kylo Ren was able to do. Was a good little nod there. But yeah, when she arrives, this whole lesson, I guess that she learned, was you can do more working with nature. There's a whole point in there where she's talking after she kills him, and she's trying to talk to the villagers about what's next and all that. And it was a reference about throwing a pebble in the water versus going with the flow kind of thing. And it's like, whoa, this is too deep for me because it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. But but yeah, I mean, I guess the gist was, look, you can do more working with nature than working against nature. You can apply that to your relationships with people. You can do more working with somebody, coming together with somebody, rather than going against them and being an opposing force in some way.
Yeah, it's the change curve.
Yeah, it'll all happen.
So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say just a couple more things that stood out to me. The helmet trick I thought was cool. Like I wasn't expecting that when he tossed the helmet down and then it went into the ship and blew it up. And of course they all deactivated, which is a terrible design. We've talked about that many times.
What'd you think of the ship?
It was cool. It looked like, so I guess it was not necessarily supposed to be a separatist ship. Although I have questions about how they rigged it.
It looked like a Corellian ship.
It did look like a Corellian, yeah.
It looks like Dash Rendar, the Outrider.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good. I totally didn't think about that, but yeah, Dash Rengar's from Shadows of the Empire. I like the "I am a Jedi," and that's when I think you hear the Rey sound when she says that. Yeah. I enjoyed the rocket heels, like I don't know where those. Is that
what they were?
Yeah. So when you listen to the audio descriptors or descriptions, they talk about how she's got like they call them robotic heels or something. They have a name. I put them in the show notes as rocket heels. But yeah, when she did that, those things open up and it gives her a boost. So she's using the Force, of course. That rhymes. But she's also using her.
That was awful, man.
She's using her heels. I know it sounds like a bad Dr. Seuss book, but she's using the heels to kind of propel her as well, which is what allows her to kind of get that shot off. And that's again 2 episodes where we saw that kind of happen, where they just suddenly disappear and they're like right there in front of them, which is all very Samurai Showdown and all that. But yeah, that was kind of a neat little trick there that she used, and very precise in just cutting off his arm. I thought he was dead, and like I don't like.
Oh, he was cut in half.
Was he? Well, then how did she? But he had her.
Jedi wizardry, man.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not gonna get.
Pretty sure he was cut in half. Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, yeah, I mean, it was great. And then she leaves, presumably to go. I don't know, go be a Jedi now. I think she kind of mentions that there's the whole big galaxy out there. It just kind of ends there. So we're kind of left with a lot to be questioned and a lot to be answered.
Yeah, there was one you done the quote where she's walking and talking, and you were just summarizing it a bit where F was. She makes the comment, Majina, may you rise and may the Force be with you. Mm-hmm. And that was to kind of go back and just maybe recap on Majina before we move on to the next episode. Is Majina the planet then and not the Force? Or is this just her linking the two together where, that there wasn't anybody to actually do that, so she did that for us?
Yeah, maybe.
It's possible.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's a good question, really. It really is. I have no idea. I took it as the Force, but it could be the planet. I'm thinking about video games now again, where like Secret of Mana and all that, and the planets and the
Unicron.
There you go. Yeah, that's what it was.
Sorry,
All right.
Transformer reference, folks.
Yeah, let's move on. Okay, we're gonna go. Let's see. Chef Chris says those rocket heels were so sick. Yep, they definitely were. Yeah, and I'm with Katya on this one too. I felt like all these episodes were tentative of a pilot to a series. I think they were. I mean, I think they were they're dipping their toes in, saying, "Look, we're going to give you anime Star Wars, and then based on how you react, it may give you more, it may give you a lot more. We don't know. We'll see."
Right.
So it's very possible. And
So
it may not.
is this one you want more from?
I don't know. As much as I liked it, like there are other ones that I would want to see like put to the front burner before this one.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know, like it seems like they didn't give us enough to believe there's a lot more still to do with her character. There's still certainly a lot going on, but what is she going to do as a single Jedi? If she's the only one, she's stuck like Kanan or any of the other Jedi. They're just kind of living in secret, and eventually, if Vader's out there and the Emperor's out there, and she's going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go fight them all." Well, guess what? You're not going to live very long because
Right.
you're not Luke Skywalker, and there were a lot of things that had to happen for him to get to that point. So,
Right. Yeah, it's a bit of her story is very similar to so many others. Yeah, it's difficult to say, yeah, I want to see more of it because it feels very familiar.
mm-hmm. Yep.
But still very good. I really like this. This was one of those that was, you don't know everything that came ahead of it. You don't necessarily need to know anything that's coming afterwards, but it was one of the more self-contained story, even though there were a lot of things that happened elsewhere. But you get enough of it here to where it did feel like more of a complete story, at least for what we needed here. Although, again, a lot of gaps in what would have helped us make sense of it, I think, is maybe where we're landing on, right?
Yep. Okay, let's talk about T0 or TO. Is it T0B1?
Yeah, technically. It's T0. Well, it's just like everywhere else. It's really C3P. Oh, well, is it O or 0?
It's it's O. Yeah.
That's the thing, we don't even know anymore because all the zeros they say O. They kept calling him TOB1, but it is T0B1.
Yeah, they call him TOB1, but it is a 0.
Right. And then the professor later calls him Toby when he's morphing into Mega Man.
Yeah, I just call him Toby.
It works.
Keep it simple. But why don't you kick it off here? The little
all right. So a cybernetic boy who dreams to one day become a heroic Jedi discovers a secret about his creator's past that threatens their once peaceful existence.
Wow, it's way more menacing than the show was actually.
Right, where all the boinging and the boop, boop, boop
well, it's very different. Like you look at the very first 5 minutes of this episode, the very last, well, at least the battle, like they're night and day different in terms of how they are. But
this was a very dynamic episode where you go from something that felt very kiddish and childish to something that was like, okay, it's evolving a little bit more, and then it got pretty intense and dark for where it started. It was just such a dramatic shift from where it was.
Well, and it's very like he's jumping around and making little, I don't know, he's kind of going between his legs, and you got the little droids that are kind of like mice running around, and they're having fun. Right. The music is very hokey pokey kind of thing, right? It's very kiddie in terms of the way it sounds. So it all starts off that way, and I kind of label this as a Star Wars Pinocchio story. You've got a boy who wants to be real, a boy that wants to be a Jedi, and wants to be real because we'll get to that here in a little bit about can droids be Jedi, which is we've never talked about that on the show, but I've got some thoughts here.
There were a lot of
but there was and then you got his what is it, Professor Minata or whatever. Right. He is he's like a Geppetto, right? He's created all these different droids and that sort of thing. But the whole point of this is they're trying to bring life back to this planet, which I took it as Tatooine as well because it had the twin suns. I don't know when would you say this takes place? Like around what era?
That is really, I thought about that long and hard. When I was putting some of the notes together in the recaps, I was like, okay, let's define where the era is at, help people in case they haven't seen it or they don't remember. But this one could have happened, 1,000 years after Luke Skywalker. It really could have been that far down the road. I mean, you have a Jedi who is, the light has basically been extinguished from the Jedi. They're in hiding. So, okay, that could be any number of times. Also, you still have Inquisitors. So that doesn't necessarily mean he looks nothing like anything we've ever seen from an Inquisitor.
Right.
The technology seems a lot more advanced than what we've seen it in other places. So, and again, that there's no life, and it does seem like Tatooine because there's moisture farms and the two suns, like you said. So there's a lot of similarities there. But yeah, it could have really been, and presumably if they brought life to this planet, then this is well beyond, either well before or well beyond any timeline that we're really familiar with.
True. Yeah, maybe it is like well before. I would say so too. Like it
It's
does
in a
feel like it's
different dimension, actually. It doesn't
well,
matter
all
what
of it.
time frame; it's just a different dimension.
Yeah, that's fair too.
Yeah.
There and earlier on, and I was gonna put screenshots up and I got ran out of time, but earlier on when he's kind of going when he goes down into the basement and he's like looking at all the lithograph or like the what do they call those pictograms and stuff that are all over the walls,
Right,
um,
hieroglyphs and all that.
hieroglyphs or yeah. There were some really cool ones in there. Like I don't know if you get a chance, go back and
Yeah.
like just pause those. There was the Hildebrandt Star Wars painting, the original 1977 with all the X-wings that are kind of taken off and kind of making
Mhm.
that curving. I'm making a curving motion with my hand for those of you listening to the audio.
You can
And
hear it if you
yo,
really
you can
listen.
hear it.
Turn it up
Listen,
real loud.
ready? Here it is. There,
There
that
it
was it.
was.
That was it. And then you got Luke Skywalker. He's standing there with his lightsaber. Although there's no Princess Leia around his leg or the droids or anything, but that's definitely lifted off of that. A
Right.
little bit later, when you go a little bit later on, there's a picture of what looks like General Grievous fighting Kenobi. So it's like this menacing looking thing with like all these arms and lightsabers on it. And in the background, I thought it looked like Kenobi, Obi-Wan, and Maul, but the black dark side figure that's in the middle has two separate lightsabers. And so maybe it's Dooku, maybe it's it's as far like from what two, part two, Attack of the Clones.
Right. Yeah. It's just really cool when they do that. There's just so many things you can just stop it and go look for. And even like the sequence where Toby is, imagining being, he's got real captured into it and he's raptured. He's, I'm going to be a Jedi. I'm going to, fight the Empire. And he's like swiping at, at Walker legs. And just the animation style of that, though, was also
Mhm.
still very, it was like something we would have seen in a really cool Japanese piece of art. And those are some of the things I really liked about it, was that there was this very traditional Japanese poster art that we got back in the 80s. And it really captured the spirit of some of that stuff. That was really nice to see that on screen.
Yeah. They're well, so the reason I had mentioned the those little images was because if that's what made me think this is in the future because those are all scenes that have happened already in
Right.
episodes 1 through 9 or whatever. So
Yep.
um
It is
okay, so
decided.
it's been decided, yeah, just like that. A couple lines that stood out to me. I kind of mentioned these earlier that there were some lines that were lifted right out of the show or right out of the movies. When is it Minata is talking to
Anata.
him?
Right.
Yeah, he says when it comes to the future, you see there is a distance, but there is also the immediate, and this reminds us of Qui-Gon Jinn saying, to not
Live in
be,
the moment.
yeah, live in the moment, right? And it says, well, Master Yoda said I should be mindful of the future, not at the expense of the present. That's exactly what they're talking there. There's the he has the old adventure, excitement,
Right.
Jedi don't crave these things. That's in there as well. I mean, like just the exact same words as far as what they used. This one did have I've got a bad feeling about this as well. So a little bit later, although it was kind of a BB-8 reference because it was the droid that said it that we couldn't understand and
Oh,
he
but
had to
he
interpret it.
he repeated it, yeah.
Yeah, he repeated it for us.
Which I think that's happened once or twice in these episodes as well.
Hmm.
Someone else says it, but they go ahead and say it again for us.
So let's get into a controversial topic.
Oh yeah.
In this episode, they allude to that this droid Toby can feel the Force. Right, he's having dreams. First off,
Right.
right, and not to get into the basement, another podcast. But there's a book that was written called "Do Electric Sheep Dream?" Dream or "Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep?"
Right.
And that is what spawned the Blade Runner movies, right? And it's the same kind of concept, same idea that they're struggling with here. Is at some point does your programming of a droid or robot or whatever you're calling this get to so realistic that they start taking on realistic traits such as dreaming and having feelings and having emotions for people, or is that just programming? Just is that really advanced programming in some way? But I think where we've seen this before, at least and talked about, and maybe you and I have probably never talked about it, but I know growing up and having conversations with people about Star Wars and the Force and all that, uh, R2D2 was always one that came to mind. Like if you had to pick a droid what droid could be Force sensitive? Like it seems like he has so many heroic moments and so many things just happen to go his way in terms of luck, right? And then going back to there's no such thing as luck, there's only the Force. that's one that I've always felt like, okay, if you had to make a case for any droid in Star Wars, whether being force sensitive, apart from like the General Grievuses and some of
Right.
the other ones. I mean, there's stuff in Legends that we can talk about as well where they definitely were, but that was one that I would always think it was. But what are your thoughts on that? Can droids be force sensitive?
This episode doesn't really answer it either. It just presents more questions, I think, because the professor tells Toby to use the force, right? And to reach out to the force, but it's clear that Toby doesn't know what that actually means. And he doesn't really feel anything. And it doesn't really seem like he actually gets to that point in the episode at all. Did it seem that way to you?
It
Where
does. It does. For me, it did. There was a turning point where I felt like he did, but I don't want to spoil anything because I have a theory. But go on. I'll come back. We're going to get to it. Don't worry.
okay, yeah, but there's certainly some aspects of it that definitely did feel like that, right? So the world between worlds type of scene where the Inquisitor is going to take him, basically kill Toby, and the professor, basically brings him up into the world between worlds and talks to him and says, you are a Jedi, and he knights him and all this other stuff. And he momentarily flashes between being a real boy and being a droid. So, like that?
Yeah.
I'm a real boy.
It's good Southern Pinocchio you got there.
That's right. So I left really with no good answers because there were just as many arguments against it. If we were to sit there and watch the episode all the way through and like talk about it every, as we go through it, I think there's just as many arguments against it as there are for it, if not more against it. So I'm curious to hear where you landed on this. Hold on, where's my helmet? Where's my hat?
And I keep saying I'm going to do this. I'm going to get some foil. And I'm going to take a hat and just wrap it. Like,
blame Stephanie. She's the one supposed to do that. Yeah.
I know. But okay. So the short answer for me is I think at some point, artificial intelligence can get to where it becomes lifelike. It never truly is life, but does the Force care? Maybe is the question. Can the Force can you get so close that you're able to finally manipulate the Force? I don't know. This episode to me, I walked away thinking, oh, okay, it is possible. And they kind of showed it, but there were certain things that had to happen, and I'll come back to here in just a little bit. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I kind of landed on. Oh yeah, he is Force sensitive. Because one, he's having dreams. So why would droids have dreams? Two, he was able to control the Force. He went up against the.
But what if the
Inquisitor.
professor planted his dreams?
Well, that's true. But yeah, I mean that's very possible. But then
what if he programmed his
away the
own
magic.
dreams? Because so the other thing is, so just to get argumentative about it, the other thing is that the professor is constantly upgrading him and making him grow, right? So he is constantly evolving in a way, even if it's from a programmatic standpoint, that he is doing things to help the boy grow.
Yeah.
And we can use the boy in quotes or however you'd like to feel that, but so there's different things happening, and so. Does the professor really view him in a very Pinocchio type of way that, one day he will be a real boy, or that he can, I don't know, have a real boy-like life type of thing? Because he's also very, I mean, of course, just his, just the shape of his body and everything is very humanoid, right? It's not C-3PO, robotic and everything like that. He's very fluid and, clearly much more advanced than any of the droids around him.
Yeah, and he starts off almost like a toddler, like a really young boy, and by the very end of it, he's still kind of young, but he grows up a lot, I guess, after that battle too. So,
right,
it's a good point. I mean, I think if you're gonna go and say that there's no way this could happen, then that's a really intriguing storyline that someone is manipulating a droid to feel like they are Force sensitive, and then, but just because you are, could you go up against somebody like an Inquisitor? And I would say, yeah, because, well, no, I was gonna say Grievous could do it, but he was actually human before he was a droid.
It wasn't really, yeah.
I
think the other thing is, just to have a little more fun with this, is it possible that the professor was using the Force to imbue the Force into?
Oh, you're making this
Toby.
really cynical now.
What? No.
Lighthearted story.
No, I bring this up
Dr. Frankenstein.
No, I bring this up for a very specific purpose, because in the Patreon episode tonight, we're going to talk about some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to bring up Darth Maulman. And we've seen this before in other content where you have a Force imbued object. Whether it's a person's spirit, or it's a vibe, or this impression in the Force, the cave on Dagobah, all these different things we've got.
Yep.
So is it possible that the professor was doing this, incrementally or little by little to either continue his work? Because the other thing we haven't really talked about, the professor was trying to restore life, of course, and they had actually made it happen. And of course, the professor dying is what actually kind of made it happen, I guess. The cosmic force type of thing again. But I don't know. I thought it was in the ballpark though of everything else we saw.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Absolutely.
It's like, why not on this episode? Let's just throw the whole kitchen sink at it.
We should have just done a whole episode on this. Should have been the Patreon episode where we just talk about this.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, for like 2 hours. Okay, we got to get through this.
Tell Chef Chris that we're going to push Ninth Jedi the next week. Sorry.
Right, yeah, sorry, buddy. We're going to run out of time.
He would have our eyes.
Special episode only dedicated to the Ninth Jedi. There's Geppetto says he says, I'm one with the Force. The Force is with me. There at the very end before he knows he's going to die.
Right.
Once he's killed, we get the whole background on the terraforming and all of that. There is when the Sith shows up, they have that battle, which I thought was great. I thought it was really choreographed really well.
Yeah,
the way he fought was awesome too, because he was taking advantage of the fact that his torso could turn. So at points when he was fighting, he was just pivoting, his arms would pivot and rotate back. So he wasn't like held, to our human type restraints and what our bodies can and cannot do, which is cool. And then once he kills him and he goes back and he figures out, okay, I'm going to go through with the professor's dreams, which basically boils down to terraforming. They were trying to take this planet and grow life on it when it was particularly void of life. And
Yuuzhan Vong. Okay.
Yep. So, jeez. So where I was going with all this, like the whole, for me, my headcanon is yes, he was force sensitive. However, he couldn't actually feel the Force because there was not enough life on the planet. And that's what they were trying. That's why Geppetto was why he was trying so hard to get life to grow on it. It wasn't because they needed to terraform the planet and you do it to other planets around the world. It was, he realized that like on Dagobah, where the Force was so strong because there were so many living things, he needed something to be that catalyst for that droid to finally feel the Force and become Force sensitive or become human or lifelike or whatever. And so that's why when that plant started, I guess when he had grass in the water right before the Inquisitor got there and all that was the life being grown, and that's where he was finally able to kind of take that next leap forward. So that
seems to support my argument that the professor was working on Toby to imbue him with the Force.
Yeah, exactly.
He just needed the spark.
He just needed
that would light the fire.
Yeah, jeez.
To burn down the Inquisitor.
How many quotes can we sneak in here tonight?
We're gonna find out.
Yep. But I thought the last cool moment for me was the way CO3 jumped on his back and became like another like propulsion force to allow him to kind of make that samurai cut and cause him to fall down. So
it was very Gundam / Voltron.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and the Inquisitor was pissed, man, when he found a droid. I mean, it was like an abomination of sorts. It was really interesting to see that kind of reaction from a dark side of people, darksiders who typically completely manipulate the Force in the most obscene and perverse ways.
Yep.
To then think that was perverse in its own way is very, very interesting and odd.
Yep. And I'm going to steal the show for 2 seconds because I forgot to do this last week, and I
all right, see you later.
All right. No, I'm going to throw this up because I picked up this pin last week. It's a Avar Chris pin. It says, "We are all the Republic, for life and the light." Which for life and the light, she got this quote from Light of the Jedi, because that's the only time they ever say "for life and the light." It's always "for life and light" after that. So, but yeah, I just want to say thank you for this amazing pin. It's huge. I mean, it's enormous. But I threw the website there up, sparkofhopepins.squarespace.com. She's got all kinds of them. She's doing like 40% off. The really good stuff. She's got one that's chiss and salsa, and it's a bowl of salsa, but the bowl looks like Admiral Thrawn's white garment, with his insignia on there. And then the chiss look like chips. They're blue chips, but they're chiss. So chiss and salsa. Come on, you can't get any better than this. I mean, it's amazing.
Wow, it sounds like a Patreon episode title we're going to have here at some point. You're probably disappointed now you can't use it.
Yeah, no, I can't use that. I've already spoiled that. Okay, so I had to give her a shout out, and I forgot to do it last week, and so I want to do it just to
Damn,
piss
that's
Chris
going to
off a
suck.
little bit longer because we're
Yeah, I was
still
about to
not
say,
talking.
man, when we get to the out of the Thrawn books, because the last one's coming up here pretty soon.
Okay, the Ninth Jedi. Well, I'll read the summary here. Many generations have passed since the Jedi, the daughter of a legendary lightsaber smith, is pursued by dark forces as she travels across harsh terrain with a very important delivery. Newly crafted lightsabers meant for a ragtag group of warriors claiming to be the Jedi. Now, in this one, what era? I mean, this one feels like it's kind of on the nose in terms of the era, or maybe not. Or what did you think? Where does this take place? Like, it feels like this is years, like thousands and thousands of years in the future.
Yeah, you know what it reminded me of was the Star Wars Legacy comics. You know,
Yes,
where
yeah.
everything is so far removed down the road, and the Jedi have all but disappeared, or at least their presence isn't felt and isn't seen. Now, granted, we're given a little bit different impression of that. This almost seems like it's again like a post Order 66 type of timeline. At least that was the feeling we got by the end of the episode. But it very much it felt inspired though by Legacy, to be honest with you.
Mm. Yeah, I think so too. This one did feel like it could have been, 10,000
Any-
years before,
Yeah,
or
true.
10,000 after. Um, Maybe the first one more than I was. I was kind of looking at this one as it did take place a long time ago, even well before anything
In a
that
galaxy
we're
far,
familiar
far
with.
away.
Yeah, I was going to go there, but decided not to.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
other interesting, and I like the idea of way back in the past where the Jedi and the Sith basically destroyed each other.
Yeah.
I always liked that idea where they fought and they dwindled their numbers to so few that neither one really had a presence anymore. They
Yep.
scattered.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, like if you go back and watch or read some of those older stories, they're so basic. Like they've got a good they know that they feel the force, they can use the force, but they can't do some of the extravagant things that we can see, like in obviously in the High Republic or later on, because they just haven't learned the force that well. They don't know it that well. And I think that bodes well for what we saw in this episode, because while yes, it was pretty straightforward. There was not a lot of flash going on. It was straightforward fighting with lightsabers, and they talked about they hadn't seen lightsabers in forever. Like no one had seen a lightsaber in a really
Yeah, it
long
was such an
time. So,
interesting concept. Yeah.
yeah, and more than anything, before we go further, like this is the one that I definitely need to see more of. Right, this
Absolutely.
last
Yeah.
scene that I've got behind me, where they're just kind of all walking away in slow mo, was like it really makes you want to know like what's next, because there's so many threads they leave open that they've got to go follow up on. That I think if they're going to do anything with any of these episodes, this one feels like it's going to be the one they're going to hit first. But that's just
Ab-
my opinion. But what did
Oh,
you think?
absolutely. I absolutely agree, because this is one where you have everything that came before it and after that you want to know. It was a bit like Duel, right? With Ronan in that same vein, but I think this one had so much more content and some interesting concepts built into it, that you've got the story of, okay, how did we get to this place? Like, how do they forget about lightsabers, or how do they forget how to craft a lightsaber? Why is there a lightsaber smith? Like, we never heard of a lightsaber smith before. That doesn't make any sense. And then now not only are they going to find her father, but now they're going to try to rebuild the order. And oh my goodness, this idea that the lightsaber could change color based on your force presence, and that they could actually manipulate the kyber crystal to do something like that is just, it's kind of mind blowing. And I know it's over the top and a bit,
It's
extreme
outside
in
the
some of these
realm
ways.
of yeah.
Yeah, it's very fantasy based, right? But at the same time, these are the things we've always kind of wanted to see. This episode had so many things that were just so rooted in ideas that you and I and tons of other people had as kids, right? Of, well, if I had a lightsaber, it would be this color because whatever reason, right?
Hmm.
And this was very much that thing where it showed your true colors right away, or in the case of, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on her name.
Kara.
Kara, yeah. In the case of Kara, she came into her own into what the lightsaber was. And it was interesting. It was very subtle to begin with. Like when the lightsaber smith lights it up, it's blue. And as soon as he hands it to her, then it goes to the green, translucent. But it was very, very subtle. You almost forget that it was blue to start.
Yeah. Katya says, I love this kind of sorting hat lightsaber concept. That's
Right.
exactly what it was. Like, depending
Yeah.
on who's holding it, you'll get different things. Chef says, I want all the story we can get of the Margrave and his story, which, yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot
Like where he got that cloak.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Fulcrum.
Fulcrum logo.
Fulcrum logo right on the back there. It looked like it was compressed though, like it was. Was
It
it?
was
I
a
didn't.
little. I think it was pretty
Was
much
it
right
pretty
on.
spot on? Okay, I saw it and I definitely recognized it, but I didn't get a chance to go back and like freeze frame it and
And it
kind
was
of focus on it.
somewhere.
But
It was somewhere else too. I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah.
yeah, Steph says this was my favorite. Yeah, this was a favorite for a lot of people.
This had the most depth. It was just man. Yeah, this one delivered on I think all fronts of what people were looking for. It was a more serious in tone story,
mhm.
but it also gave you this coming of age type of story. And then it gave you this really great combat sequence, and it gave you kind of mystery, and it has you interested in the past and what could come next. And the end was a little heavy-handed. We kind of knew where that was going, where they flipped the camera up, and I didn't need the lightsaber sound with the with the temple and the light coming
Yeah.
out, and then have it like that was a little much. But man, it's easy to see why this is clearly becoming. Or it probably almost I don't know if it's unanimous, but significant number of people. This is probably their best one, their favorite one.
Yeah, it is. At least in my circles, I know that's the one that people kind of put up there as far as it being their favorite.
Right after Tatooine Rhapsody.
Yeah, right after, just slightly above Tatooine Rhapsody. Although that was a fan favorite as well, just for
I
some
liked
people.
it.
Certain circles of friends enjoyed that one. How about that? Okay,
Guilty.
let's. I want to talk about some of the kind of the big moments or the pieces that stood out for me on this one.
Yeah.
The planet itself was very interesting because we were told that this planet was rich with kyber crystals. So I think Ilum, right, in terms of like a comparable planet to something that we're familiar with here in our Star Wars world. But and then they said, well, it's the planet that has it, but yet the very beginning, the opening scene, you see an asteroid.
Yeah, they're
And
fetching asteroids out of orbit.
yeah, because then that asteroid had like it looked like it had like a blue kyber crystal in there that kind of they showed it and then it disappeared because it got pulled down. So then I started thinking, okay, well maybe that was a moon at one point that used to circle the planet. That suddenly that moon blew up, and so yes, there's probably kyber crystals that they can mine from the surrounding asteroids now, the debris of that moon that's now in orbit around that planet, or they are truly mining kyber crystals down there at the bottom. Either way, I liked what you said about this was an interesting concept to have a lightsaber smith who is just cranking these things out, and he knows how to do it rather than having in the traditional sense where Jedi, had to do this as part of one of their tests, right, in order to kind of
Well, and
excuse me.
and I don't know if he actually knew how to. He still had to have the schematics from the Margrave, right? If I recall that correctly. But he had the skills and the equipment and things like in
Yeah.
order to do it on time. And again, that's another aspect of it of like, okay, well, if the art was lost, then how did they find the schematics for it? What did that look like? Of how did they, were they attracted to, did the Force call them in some way in order to do that or what? And to go back to how they were fetching the asteroids out of orbit was just really, really cool. Just a slingshot, like it was basically a fishing
Trebuchet.
line. Well, yeah, but it was like a fishing line,
Yeah,
right? It was
yeah,
like
yeah.
fly fishing. Just it was a trebuchet. It just
Yeah,
and then just yank them straight to the planet. Of course, in reality, that caused quite a disturbance there, but
sure. But
they
Star Wars science.
didn't. Yeah, they probably had a bad feeling about it.
Oh, did they use that line here? They didn't use it in this one that I remember.
Yep, they did.
They did. All right,
Yeah.
it's probably down below.
I didn't put it in the notes because I just got tired of
Alright.
writing it.
Yeah. There's so that was all great stuff. Ethan was the first to arrive there. That was a good twist. I wasn't expecting that. Right. I just kind of took hook, line, and sinker. Oh, they're all Jedi, and I think that they were pretty crafty about giving Ethan, the guy, the lightsaber first to ignite, and so it does ignite blue. So you're still thinking, oh, okay, yeah, they're all still Jedi, and that big reveal when they finally ignite their lightsabers and they're all red, you're like, whoa, wait a minute, this is not what I was
Right.
expecting. So that was very cool.
But it made sense because I was really worried. I was like, man, these are the jerkiest Jedi I've ever heard in my life. And we've heard some pretty jerky ones.
Yeah, Windu. But
Yeah.
there's we talked about the emblem, the Fulcrum logo on the back there. Another line that kind of gives you, it's kind of teasing thing. Like when you go back and you see all the hints and clues that they gave you that they were actually Sith. When the Margrave walks in as a robot, he says, "I sense the dark side here." Right. And so you're thinking at that time, like in the moment in context, you're thinking the Margrave, because they're talking about the Margrave. Is he a Sith? Can we trust him? That kind of thing. So you're thinking, oh, the dark side's here. It's probably him. And it really is these other Jedi or Sith or whatever. We'll come back to the question about who was the Ninth Jedi because they did answer it at the very end, although it wasn't very clear to me. Like the math doesn't add up, but that's something
Right.
else. Um, yeah, and then just the whole tempering of the lightsabers, like that concept of, yes, he was creating them, but he was putting them together by per schematics, I guess you would think, but he's also found a way, or he's following some kind of pattern that allows them to change color based on their allegiance. And we got to see that in real time change where what was it? I called him Udi Disc because I couldn't think of
Right.
what was his name? I wrote it
Can't
down here.
remember. Yeah, if you're watching the live stream, his head is right in between us, though. That guy.
He's like
But yeah, his lightsaber goes from red to purple when he's fighting Ethan, and he's clearly in conflict.
yeah, he's like the bird looking thing. Homan is his name.
Homan, yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna call him Udi Dis though. And but we got to see the lightsaber change color in real time on that one, which is kind of cool. There was I didn't even mention Kara, like the name. We've talked about this before, but for anybody that doesn't know, Kara is a name that George Lucas had a long time ago, when like earlier on in the scripts when he was still writing these out. Kara, I think, is who eventually became Luke, if I'm not mistaken. If I could be wrong there, but she was the inspiration for Rey, because Rey was originally Kara, and then her name was changed to Kira. And so Kara keeps coming up in all of these pre-story, like these early story on development type things. And it wasn't until The Mandalorian where they finally just gave a character the name Kara. So that's how we got Cara Dune, again, which is a throwback to George Lucas's early writings and scripts. But here, they definitely gave her that name for probably that reason alone, which was kind of cool. I want to talk about the Endor chase. I thought that was a great moment because it was very similar to the Battle of Endor, and specifically when Luke and Leia are chasing or being chased by the scout troopers, and you get the whole flying through the trees and stuff. She did something kind of interesting where she flipped the speeder around and was navigating it backwards, but still ducking underneath the tree. So, like, how do you take that scene to the next level? You go backward, you fly backwards, right?
Right.
Which was cool. And then the way she took out that hunter was very similar to Luke, where that infamous that whole scene is just awesome with the sound, right? Where it gets real quiet, and then you hear the lightsaber turn on, his green lightsaber ignites, and you see it, and he's kind of got that smirk on his face. And same kind of concept here, where she takes out the speeder bike, although she didn't take out the hunter because he did get up and he was still alive at the very end. But again, another nod to Return of the Jedi.
And what did you think of the CGI in that Force sequence?
It was great.
It almost looked like the Force was real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was impressive stuff. I mean, when we saw the trailer, we saw her on the ice and stuff, but it did not prepare me for what exactly we saw the actual sequence being.
Yeah.
It was just simply stunning to watch.
It was good stuff. It was like a mix of CGI and 2D animation. Anytime they can blend that stuff together is great. It did stick out like a sore thumb for me, though, if I had to be a critic here at the very end.
That sequence was very different than all of the other sequences.
Yeah. But when that ship, when the ship comes in at the very, very end to take them away, because they're going to go look for her father, that CGI looked like it was right out of like 1998 or something. You know what I mean? Like, it was really, there wasn't a lot of depth to it. So I don't know, maybe that was a stylistic thing. I have no idea. But the battle, that whole battle was just great stuff. Everything from, when the Margrave finally reveals himself, which I thought was great. There was two, I think he sliced two of them in half, like literally showed one of them kind of like fall apart and separate, which was pretty gruesome. The Margrave's Juro is his name. His lightsaber was shaped like a katana, and that hilt on a katana is called a subo. And they made that little ring. If you look at it, it's just kind of floating there. So it looks exactly like a samurai blade, but it's made of, kyber, which is really awesome. What do you think about the green force lightning and the red force lightning?
I didn't think that he actually had green force lightning. It looked more like an aura. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I looked again. The last time I watched it, I was like, okay, see the red lightning, which I think was just a stylistic thing. But the green, it was almost like he was covered in the green. It wasn't like he was actually doing anything else. He was just kind of pushing back, and that was his aura, I guess, from the lightsaber. But I didn't see
a shield or something that he had around him
of sorts. Yeah, but I didn't see any actual green lightning coming from him. I thought I saw that initially, but when I looked at it again, I didn't see anything.
Okay, no, I'm with you there. Like, it does look like it at first, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was what you said. But the coloring was really cool there.
It was
just the dynamic of that contrast between the green and the red. was really, really nice looking. Why did he have the mask on?
That's a
Like
great question.
he loses the mask, and it seems like he's fine. Doesn't he's not breathing heavily. I didn't really see any bad scars on his face. He just looks kind of weathered and tired, kind of
I
like
think
us.
some of it is just concealment, right? I mean, you don't want if you're trying to bring the Jedi back. But again, presumably the people who know who the Margrave is, but they maybe he didn't want these people to see his face for whatever reason that might have been.
Mm. Well,
I don't, I
the
don't,
mask
I
that
don't
he
know if they would
wore.
have recognized him.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, she did. Remember, because when she came out and he had the mask on, he was like, "Oh, it's the Margrave."
Right.
And that mask was kind of like not what you would wear if you were on the light side, because it looked kind of, I don't know. Did it look scary?
Well, he had red eyes and stuff too.
Yeah, it didn't. I mean, maybe it was just part of a way to throw off the audience or whatever. But I
I
don't
think
know.
so. And he just, man, this looks really cool. I'm gonna wear this stuff. I'd probably be the same.
I'm
You could
good,
be the
but
best Jedi in
I'm not.
the
I'm not.
galaxy, but I'm gonna look like a badass. I don't care
Yeah,
what you say.
yeah, that's probably it. You're probably right. Oh, we talked about Udi Dis.
Yeah. Hey, Albert,
Okay.
I've got a new favorite droid though, and it's
Yeah.
this pilot droid.
Oh yeah.
Nice moves.
Sitting there sipping what we can only assume
Boiled
would be
tea.
coffee, but or tea. I don't know. It felt like there's probably something in there a little heavier. If you know what I mean.
But it was
Yeah,
I
those
just
guys
thought
were
that was so funny.
pretty laid back. And then one guy's sitting there, who God knows how long he's been sitting there, and like all his buddies have just deactivated, and he's just
Right.
no big deal, whatever. But yeah, like that's things like that where it just begs questions, like how did they get there and why are they there, and what's their story? That's the stuff that we think about. We're like, wow, this is kind of deep. There's a lot here that they could go off. Not that that would be a primary focus of the story, but maybe you'd want to know sometime down the road.
I
All
was
right,
also curious. I was curious about Kara's training though, because the lightsaber smith,
yeah,
who was her father,
dad.
right?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Yeah, and clearly he has force abilities because he blocked a blaster bolt that, of course, blew up the place and kind of knocked him out. But what did she have any kind of training? It didn't seem like there was a lot of formal training there between her, but clearly she had a lot of skills, and he recognized that. But it wasn't really clear if he was actually actively training her or anything like that. What do you think about that one? Do you think that was something they did or part of their lifestyle or?
Yeah, I think so. In there's a moment where they're talking about, he's telling her that, hey, in time, I don't know, your connection with the force is going to grow, is what she said, right? So we know she's
Right.
force sensitive for sure. I would guess that she has had training. I mean, you got presumably a lightsaber craftsman of some sort. He's training his daughter, or maybe she's been training under Margrave. That's kind of where I think she probably, if she's getting any training, it's probably for him. But there's certainly that aspect of it. There's a later on when the hunter's chasing it, he says something about, he says, I sense he says, what is it? The force is strong in this child, is what he says.
Right.
And that's like a kind of a Vader in
Right.
the trenches from episode 4 callback as well. But yeah, so was definitely force sensitive. I don't know. Was her training good enough that she could take on those guys? I don't know. I mean, they looked like they'd all been well trained, which kind of seems counterintuitive given that Jedi really haven't been around. You got to, these guys are probably either making stuff up on their own or, what they called themselves Sith, but what does that really mean to them? Are they just taking it in name only because they have red lightsabers and they're evil and that's just enough that, checks 3 boxes and that's good enough? Or are they really fully fledged Sith and, have masters and training and all that stuff? We just don't know. So, is she as good as everybody else? Yeah, probably, but I don't know if there's any way to kind of get a sense for just how much training she's had with that.
Right. Yeah. And again, I keep going back to it. Like, how did lightsabers disappear? And for no one to have any remembrance of this, both Jedi or Sith, it's just really, really interesting how that works or how that happens. And Tuan classing up the joint in here. Margrave is a hereditary title of princes of the Holy Roman Empire, so the mask may be a nod to some of that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
You are, man. You want to take the show over, Tuan? Because
have him come on.
Yeah. Thanks for classing up the joint.
Yep. I'm gonna go turn it over right now. I'm done. But the no, maybe it is. Like now, I want to go back and look at Holy Roman Empire designs. Maybe they pull.
Oh, I'm not going to.
I will. It'll be like
Tuan will send me screenshots at 3 a.m. when he's still at work.
and that'll be after he and I have spoken about it at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Fantastic. I can't wait for the cliff notes.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's get to the very last question of the night, I guess, is who is the Ninth Jedi, and what did the Ninth Jedi mean, like in terms of that number? I
Yeah.
have my thoughts and theories.
Lay it on me, man. I want to hear it.
Oh, okay. So what I was thinking is, so Kara is the Ninth Jedi, okay, first and foremost, because at the very end, I think it's
Yeah,
Juno
he
that-
says, take your place as the Ninth Jedi.
yeah, he literally says that, right? So up until this point, there are 8 Jedi. So Juro is one of them. Omen is 2. Her dad is 3. She's the 9th, but that's technically the 4 on my fingers here. So there's still 5 other Jedi that are out there.
What about
And I
Ethan?
think- Oh, that's right, Ethan. So, okay, so 4 more Jedi. So there's still 4 Jedi that we don't know about. And I think if they're going to run with this storyline, it's yes, first and foremost, they're going to go save her dad, get him back because they need him to, build lightsabers and, well, it's her dad. And then I think the rest of the storyline is them going around trying to find these 4 Jedi that are lost, because he says, I can feel their presence. They're not dead. They're still out there somewhere. And so this now takes them on a serialized kind of show where they're going around and looking for the fourth lost Jedi, and running into more people that are calling themselves Sith. I mean, they seem organized and they seem like they were together. They weren't living by this rule of 2, or maybe they were, but they got really out of hand if there's already 5 of them there or whatever it was.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I would think there are other Sith out there. I mean, there's probably other empires, or maybe those 4 Jedi are being held by them. All of that's interesting stuff, like intriguing stuff. And I think that's where they would probably take the show in that series, is looking for all of these. And by the time you get that, then you get like the 7 samurai kind of concept. You've got 9 Jedi. What do these 9 Jedi do once they've all come together, right? It seems like there's something bigger after that now that they've got to go do, that they've finally come together, where that's restoring the Jedi Order, taking on some really big nemesis, or getting into another war of some sort. There's a lot of ways the story can go, I think.
Yeah, that's a great. I like hearing that. Thank you. But I didn't know. It just like I didn't know if he just didn't know how to count. Maybe the Holy Roman Empire doesn't like count all that great. I guess Twan.
Holy Roman Empire.
But yeah, I was like, how did he get to 9? Because it didn't sound like he knew how many were out there. So I was just I was just really confused as to how he came to that number and why she would be the 9th when there were all of like 3 of them there.
Well, and I think a part of it, I think it's a red herring too, right? It's all part of this trying to make you think that there were trying to make you think that there were all the 9 Jedi that we saw on screen were the 9 Jedi, and Kara was, so there was 8 total. There's actually more than that though, but I think that's what they were trying to go for, because you take the Margrave out, right? Then I almost want to do the math. Somebody do the math. We're not going to do it on the show because it'll take forever, but I want to pull it up and count how many of them are there without the Margrave, then add in Kara, add in her dad, and is that 9? And I think if that math adds up, plus or minus 1, then I think that's probably what they were doing, is just trying to throw you off by thinking, oh, this is the 9th Jedi, when really these aren't 9 Jedis. There's only 3 there, right?
And I didn't know if the Ninth Jedi had a special designation or a special meaning in general, to where like that had a symbolic, some aspect of that was symbolic. So it wasn't necessarily that the counting of it, like just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, but the 9th actually had a special meaning to it that Kara fit into in some way.
Yeah, they could do that. I think that's very possible. The only
chosen one type of stuff.
Chosen one, yeah. The only other thing that I would think is it's probably just a nod to the 9 movies of the Skywalker saga.
Oh, that's
right?
a good point.
But yeah, I mean, they could definitely take it in a way that there's something very significant about the 9th Jedi. And what that means, I don't know. Maybe it's another.
Well, you could connect that to Rey because of the naming lineage in the 9th episodes. Yeah.
There's that, but
way to take the fun out of it.
Yep. No, you're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
That's right.
That's why I'm here. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, outside of the the slow motion, the slow walkout with them going out there, the music was great in that episode. We didn't talk about the music in some of these other ones, but that one
actually
was really
the music in Ninth Jedi was very interesting. I want to get your opinion on it, because at the beginning it sounded very Star Trek, actually, not Star Wars, but Star Trek. And then when the episode got moving in, it really did feel like Star Wars. It was very good. And then when it wrapped up, it was, again, maybe the more modern type of Star Wars, but again, very And the difference is with Star Trek music, at least the thematic stuff, it's very lyrical in a lot of ways, right? It's very smooth and a lot of slurs and that type of thing, rather than the sharp brass staccato type of movement that the typical fanfare that we get with Star Wars. So it was a very interesting dichotomy there.
So if I could translate that, maybe, and I don't know if this makes sense, but for me, when you were saying that, what I'm thinking is the music sounded more like James Horner than it did John Williams. Because James Horner his music is phenomenal, and he did the Star Trek soundtrack, by the way.
Right.
Well, he didn't do the original, but when the movies came out, he's the one that came in and did the original one back in 78 or 79, whenever they did that. But he took the original Star Trek theme and then added to it and made it this grandioso kind of piece. But he's got a very unique style in the way he uses horns. That's different than the way John Williams does. And so when I hear that beginning, it's even at the end when they're walking out, it's like a very triumph kind of. I'm going to call it a horny sound, but you know what I mean? It's very different going out. That it doesn't sound like Star Wars at that point to me. There were parts in the middle that I felt like sounded like it, but the beginning and the end, you're right. I didn't really get that feeling. It did feel more like a Star Trek, if I could.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I thought it was great. It was very well composed.
Yeah,
it was just it was a little bit different. What I didn't expect actually.
Yeah, and then we had it's a lightsaber, tricked you.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. What was the blue light? Sorry.
I think it was whatever was in the bottom where the dude got fried.
Raw, like kyber crystal though? Was that a raw kyber crystal that was hot because he fell on it and got like disintegrated into nothing?
Yeah. Something like that. I don't quite understand what that was. Right. But I just didn't need the lightsaber sound. That was just that was just too much for me.
It was probably too much.
The rest of it was fine. I was like, okay, saw that coming, but that's all right.
I mean, short of saying this is a lightsaber under the bottom, like in text.
Right.
Although if you listen to the audio,
no, look at a comic. It's a lightsaber, folks.
Yeah, right. Editorial note. No, if you listen to the audio descriptions on this episode at the very end, it says the guy that's narrating says the whatever space station turns upside down, revealing what looks to be a ignited lightsaber. So they literally tell you that in that. So it was really on the nose, but it was still cool nonetheless. Like I wasn't expecting it to be one, but the minute even when it was upside down, the minute it turned on, you're like, oh, it's such an iconic symbol, right? You recognize it immediately. Right. You didn't have to turn it around so that we could see that. We get it.
Right. The light of the Jedi is reborn.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think that's all we had for this one. It was, I really enjoyed all three of these. I thought they were great in their own different ways. And I really want to see a lot more of the last one here, or the second one as it is in order, but third one here in ours. But what did you think?
Right. Yeah. So next week, we're going to wrap it up with the Elder, La Pinocho, and Akakiri.
Which is your favorite out of those?
Ooh, that is a tough one. That's a tough one. I actually really liked La Pinocho. Like, from a story aspect, I really liked La Pinocho, like where it was going. Yeah. But Elder, the acting was a little weird on Elder, but it was, I like the story aspect of it though.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like, we'll talk about next week, but the thing with the Elder though, is that you get a lot more background if you go read the producer's notes, like on StarWars.com, and you don't get any of that in the episode. This is part of the frustration with some of this stuff is like, well, the Elder is really more about a challenge, and it's more about knowledge and testing himself. And you get an inkling of some of that, but you don't get it to that level of detail or that depth, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think is generally the only persistent criticism I think you and I have of any of these is that you're just kind of dropped in the middle of it, and you don't have a whole lot of context when you get into these things.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
But we'll do that next week. And then, hey, we got a Patreon episode after this.
We do.
What are we doing this week?
We are talking about The Leveler, and the episode is called Leveling the Playing Field. And I don't understand if there's a pun there or not, but if there is one, I didn't pick up on it. And then Jonesy did some really good artwork for it too, so thank you for doing that. We'll have it up here.
Lifted straight out of the comics. So
yeah,
go check it out. go check out social media, or again, patreon.com/thecantinacast, and you can pick up all the great content we have over there.
Hey, I forgot one thing.
Uh-oh. Oh, he's making that face.
Yeah, no. I meant to talk about Simu Liu. I probably said his name wrong. The guy that played La Zima, the father, is the guy from Shang-Chi, the movie, Marvel movie. So he was in this, yeah. And then Masioka was in this as well as Ethan, who is Hero from Heroes, and I don't think he did anything else beyond that. But I always loved that character. So the fact that those two guys were in there was phenomenal. So
Nice.
I just had to call it out, man. Okay, with that, we'll leave it there. Thanks to everybody who joined us with the live show. Thanks for staying up, staying out, doing whatever, catching on the mobile phone while your bosses aren't working or looking while you're not working. We do appreciate you guys joining. And
hey, special shout out to Katya. She made it through a whole episode. I think this might be the first one.
Yeah, like it's really late over there I think she's in Brazil, so it's.
But this is what happens when we don't go 3 hours. People actually stay to the end.
People actually stay up and watch the show.
Right.
Oh, maybe we should think about that. That's a neat.
You guys are all the best. Yeah. Chris, Steph, Twan, Katya. Goodness, who else did we have in here?
Rick was in here.
Yeah, Rick was. Rick Bayless was up here. Yeah. Cole, I think his name is. Yeah. So anyone else I might have missed? We know there's always people just kind of watching and don't want to comment, but we appreciate you listening to us. And again, hopefully we'll be back on a normal schedule. We say this every week, but so stay tuned to social media and we'll let you know when our next episode is going to be.
It won't be at least until Tuesday, but I haven't told Jonesy that yet. So Jonesy,
wow, not till Tuesday.
Not till Tuesday.
All right. Well, I will pencil you in for Tuesday.
All right,
and I'll book the rest of the week too, just in case.
Just in case, yeah. Because you never know how these things are going to go. Okay. With that, we'll get out of here and see you guys soon.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.